Imagine being at the center of hip hop's most powerful empire, seeing everything behind the velvet ropes, and suddenly realizing the shadows are no longer your friends. That was Gene Deal. Once the muscle who blocked bullets for Diddy, he found himself ducking threats instead of delivering them. Rumors had already begun to swirl, but this wasn't paranoia. This was survival. According to Gene, Diddy's network didn't just want him quiet, they wanted him gone. Bribes were offered, thinly veiled threats arrived in texts and late night calls, and every glance in the rearview mirror became a jolt of adrenaline. This is the story of how one insider went from trusted protector to public target, and why some say the scars he carries today are permanent. But the question lingers: what did Gene Deal do that made Diddy's goons come for him? The answer is darker than most imagine, and it all starts with the first warning signs. Before the threats, before the whispers of violence, Gene Deal was untouchable, or at least he thought he was. As a top bodyguard at Bad Boy Records in New York City, he wasn't just protecting Diddy, he was witnessing the rise of a hip hop empire from the inside. He saw the money flow, the parties that blurred legality and indulgence, and the inner workings that most outsiders could never imagine. He blocked bullets, kept secrets, and earned trust from the most powerful names in the industry. But power has a cost, and in Gene's world, loyalty was a double-edged sword. The very network he protected could turn against him in an instant if he stepped out of line or if he spoke too much. And as the empire grew, so did the shadows. Every deal, every argument, every small betrayal built the stage for what would become the most dangerous chapter of his life. It wasn't long before those shadows started moving closer. The first warning signs were subtle, but they carried a message Gene couldn't ignore. The first signs that Gene Deal was no longer untouchable didn't come with guns or threats shouted across a room. They came quietly, through money, messages, and men who seemed to appear out of nowhere. According to Gene, Diddy's team initially tried the easiest tactic: hush money. Envelopes filled with cash, subtle offers, and promises meant to smooth over what they thought was a minor problem. But Gene didn't bite. Then came the thinly veiled threats: late night calls from unfamiliar numbers, cryptic texts, and encounters that felt more like warnings than accidents. Driving home from a meeting, headlights seemed to follow him a little too closely. Courthouse steps felt like a gauntlet, with old associates lingering just out of reach, enough to be recognized but careful to avoid security. Every move he made was being watched, every glance scrutinized. By the early 2000s in New York City, the game had changed. The message was clear: money couldn't buy silence, and now fear was in play. Gene knew that ignoring these signs wasn't an option. He was being marked, and the line between warning and real danger was about to vanish. Money and warnings weren't enough to stop them. According to Gene Deal, the threats escalated quickly, turning from whispers to moments where danger was impossible to ignore. Men he once called colleagues began showing up unannounced, lingering in shadows, making it clear they were watching and waiting. Every step outside his door felt like a calculation. Was that a coincidence? Or was someone following him? In one encounter, Gene recalls being cornered by two men in Brooklyn in 2018, not to harm him outright, but to send a message. Their presence, their words, their silence, it was intimidation perfected. He realized then that he wasn't just being warned, he was being tested. Every glance over his shoulder, every unexpected call, every unfamiliar face at a courthouse visit in New York City carried a subtle threat. Speak too much, and there would be consequences. The psychological toll was immense. The man who once blocked bullets for a living was now dodging threats he couldn't fully predict. And yet, despite the fear, Gene chose to speak. knowing that staying silent could mean never seeing tomorrow. But what happened next would prove just how far Diddy's reach and his goons really extended. When Gene Deal finally took the stand, the courtroom wasn't just a place for justice, it was a pressure cooker. Every word he spoke felt like it could shift the balance, not just legally, but in the dangerous world outside. And it wasn't just him feeling the heat. Witnesses began vanishing, some recanting their statements, others suddenly unreachable. Each disappearance added a layer of fear, a silent warning to anyone daring to speak. Brooklyn, New York, became the stage for these tense encounters. Gene noticed familiar faces from Diddy's circle showing up just far enough to be seen, but close enough to remind him he was never truly out of reach. Federal prosecutors grew frustrated as key witnesses disappeared or refused to testify, while defense attorneys scrambled to control the chaos. The pattern was chilling. It wasn't random. Every missing witness, every sudden change of heart painted a clear picture. Intimidation wasn't just a tactic, it was a system. And for Gene, the reality was unavoidable. He was up against a network with the means, motive, and reach to make people disappear, leaving him to navigate both the courtroom and the streets with constant vigilance. Even as the courtroom battles raged, whispers of something darker and more secretive began to circulate. Gene Deal and others have spoken about hidden operations at Diddy's estates in Los Angeles, tunnels, secret passages, and underground routes allegedly used to move guests, performers, or sensitive evidence unseen. Some insiders swear they existed, while skeptics insist it's nothing more than rumor. But the speculation only added to the sense of paranoia surrounding Gene. Old Polaroids, faded blueprints, and anecdotal accounts from former staff fueled the stories. Could these tunnels have been part of a larger strategy to control who saw what and who survived to tell the tale? Gene never confirmed every detail, but he described the environment as one where secrecy and intimidation were the norm, not the exception. Every decision, every step, was calculated to protect the empire and punish those who threatened it. And the implications were terrifying. If the rumors were even partially true, it wasn't just about keeping people quiet, it was about maintaining control over the very world Gene once thought he understood. But even amid the mystery, one thing was clear. The threats against him were very real, and no tunnel could shield him from the reach of those determined to make an example of him. The stakes weren't just physical, they were financial and deeply personal. Gene Deal claims that while families were vulnerable, millions of dollars were moving behind the scenes. One of the most explosive points, the sale of Biggie's publishing rights. According to Gene, the proceeds weren't used for the family or the late rapper's children. They were funneled to maintain control over Diddy's empire and keep potential whistleblowers like him in check. This wasn't small-time maneuvering. We're talking about $150 million in play while Biggie's mother was confined to hospice care in New York City, 2018. Every contract, every payment, every legal retainer was calculated to protect the man at the top, and anyone who knew too much risked becoming collateral damage. Gene says he witnessed payouts to former employees, bonuses timed to silence those who might testify, and strategic moves designed to intimidate even the boldest insiders. It wasn't just money, it was power weaponized. Every decision, every deal sent a message. Loyalty could be bought, fear could be manufactured, and speaking out came with a cost that went far beyond the courtroom. For Gene, the realization was clear. Exposing the truth wasn't just dangerous, it was life-altering. Even after the courtroom lights dimmed and the cameras stopped rolling, the impact of what Gene Deal faced hasn't faded. The man who once stood as a protector for some of hip-hop's biggest names now lives in a world defined by caution, anxiety, and the lasting effects of trauma. He speaks openly about the psychological scars, sleepless nights, constant vigilance, and the feeling that someone could be watching at any moment. Every unexpected call, every shadow on the street triggers the adrenaline that once kept him alive during his years at Bad Boy Records. The physical toll is real as well. Years of stress, fear, and high stakes confrontations have left their mark, from chronic tension headaches to a hyper alert nervous system that refuses to rest. Gene admits he carries more than just memories. He carries the fear, the paranoia, and the emotional weight of knowing the people he once trusted could turn into the very threat he feared. Even today, Gene keeps his circle tight, moving carefully in public and taking precautions that most outsiders would find extreme. Yet, despite the lingering danger, he has chosen to speak out, refusing to let silence become a weapon over him. His story isn't just about fear, it's about courage in the face of a network that once had the power to make people vanish without a trace. The psychological and emotional impact extends beyond him alone. Gene has spoken about the ripple effects: former colleagues who now hesitate to speak, family members who must live with the anxiety of being associated with someone targeted by a powerful empire, and the broader message to anyone who dares to challenge authority. His experience serves as a warning that even those once untouchable can become vulnerable, and that the consequences of stepping out of line or revealing secrets can last a lifetime. Yet amidst the trauma, Gene's story also highlights resilience. He has survived where others might have crumbled, navigating threats both overt and hidden, legal battles, and the weight of betrayal. His scars, both visible and invisible, tell a story not just of danger, but of the strength it takes to survive in a world where loyalty, power, and fear are constantly in play. Gene Deal's journey is a stark reminder of just how far power, influence, and fear can reach. From a trusted bodyguard inside Bad Boy Records to a man living in constant vigilance, his story exposes a world most outsiders can't imagine. A world where loyalty is conditional, secrets are currency, and silence can be the difference between life and death. The threats, the vanishing witnesses, the whispered rumors of tunnels, and the calculated financial maneuvers paint a picture of an empire that could bend reality to its will. Diddy's influence, according to Gene, extended far beyond music charts and record deals. It reached into the streets, the courtrooms, and the minds of anyone who dared to stand against him. And for Gene, the consequences weren't just theoretical, they left scars he carries every day, a reminder of how close he came to becoming just another footnote in the shadows. Yet there's a lesson in all this. In a world where power can intimidate, manipulate, and silence, speaking out comes at a cost, but it also exposes truths that might otherwise remain hidden forever. Gene Deal's story forces us to ask how much of what we see in the headlines is just the surface, and how much is being orchestrated behind closed doors. What's next for those entangled in this web? Will more secrets surface, or will fear continue to dictate silence? And for Gene, how long can someone live in the shadow of threats without finally finding a sense of peace? These questions linger, leaving us with the chilling realization that when secrets this big come crawling out of the dark, nobody is entirely safe. If you found this story shocking, consider what it says about power and loyalty in the world of hip-hop and in life itself. Drop your theories in the comments below, share your thoughts on what might happen next, and don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on the latest revelations. Because in a story like this, every new detail changes everything.